Okay, thanks, Sean. Okay, I'm now obviously obliged to read out the statement. Thanks everyone for attending today's meeting. Just a brief statement on the protocols to be followed during the remote meeting. Please note this meeting is being broadcast live on YouTube and the recording will be made available for public viewing following the meeting. The members, please mute their microphones throughout the meeting when not speaking. This is important since it helps the quality of the order for all present. The microphone should be switched on when invited to speak and switched off when you're finished speaking. Please use the raised hand button to indicate you wish to speak at any time. And I ask the officer to introduce themselves.
Is now joining.
Role before speaking for the first time. If any members lose connection of any technical issues, please alert the captain as soon as possible. I will now ask the clerk to carry a roll call of elected members participating in today's meeting. Okay, David?
Thanks, Chair. Just to confirm the members present, Councillor Davies?
Yes, present.
Councillor Farmer?
Present.
Councillor Houston?
Present.
Councillor McPherson?
Yeah.
Councillor McGill?
Present.
And Councillor Thompson?
Present.
Well, thanks. That's all members present. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, and we move to item 1 on the agenda. Apologies, in substitution, there isn't any. Any declarations of interest? No. So we're taking item E3.
Richard Sandeman
Is now joining.
Item E3 first, which is an exempt item. So I'm going to ask Owen to stop the recording, and once we determine this item, we'll come back into the public session for the single plan item on the agenda. So Owen, could you halt the recording, please? Okay, thanks for that on. We're going to ask David to carry out the roll call now.
Thanks, Chair. Just to confirm the members present, Councillor Davies,
Yes, present.
Councillor Farmer,
Present.
Councillor Houston,
Present.
Councillor McPherson,
Here.
Councillor McGill,
Present.
and Councillor Thompson.
Present.
That's everyone. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thanks for that, and we'll resume the meeting on item 2 here, or agenda item 4 it is actually, which is erection of 1.5-storey dwelling house land to the east of 85 Balfour Street, Whins of Milton. And Sarah, I think you're introducing this application.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'll just share my screen to get the presentation up. Can everyone see that?
Yep.
So yeah, this is for the erection of a 1.5-storey dwelling house with some hard and soft landscaping on the site on land to the east of 85 Balfour Street in Whins of Milton. So the site's located in the countryside as it is out with the settlement boundary. It's also in the green belt, and it's also within the Battle of Bannockburn and Suckyfield historic battlefield sites. So this is the site plan for the proposed property. You can see this is going to be the dwelling house here, and there's some hard standing to the west of the site. There's hedging here to the front. This is indicative drainage plans here. And this red dotted line, this is the garage and the house that was previously refused on the site last year at panel. So just going on, this is the floor plans for the property. So this is the ground floor and then the first floor. There'll be 3 bedrooms in the house. There's an outside raised patio bit here at the rear, and then there's a balcony to the front of the house as well. So these are the elevation drawings for the house. So this is the south elevation. So this will face onto the lane and be the front elevation of the house. You see there's glazing, the balcony here at the front. This will be the rear with the raised patio area here. This west elevation will be adjacent to the hard standing on the site, and then this east elevation will be to the east and face the open greenland and wooded areas. The house will be constructed with natural stone, rough cast, and this mock timber cladding, and have a slate roof as well. You can also see here how the house is landscaped into the topography of the site. It's a bit of an uneven site, so this is to compensate for that. These are some 3D visuals that were supplied by the agent. This is kind of what they intend for it to look like on the site. Okay. And then these are actually some photographs from the site. So this is taken from the lane, facing east with the site here on the left-hand side. So this is to the north of the lane. And this photograph is taken from the site facing north. So this is the rear boundary treatment for the properties on Balfour Street. This is a wooden area, and then there's open grasslands beyond this. Again, this is taken from the site facing east, so you can see the wooded areas here, and then the lane runs up here on the right-hand side. Another photograph from the site, so this is facing south. You can see this is some temporary fencing which is around the site at the minute, and this is where the lane runs along here. And again, this is the rear boundary treatment for some of the properties on Balfour Street. Again, just taken from the site, this is facing west. So this is a row of terraced properties on Balfour Street. This is their rear boundary treatments. And again, this is the wooded area to the east of the site. This is just to show some of the topography on the site. It slopes quite dramatically along the northeastern edge of the site, and there's quite a few trees along here as well. And then lastly, this is another view taken from the lane, and this is facing west. So the application site is up here on the right-hand side, again to the north of the site. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that, Sarah. Open up now for questions from panel members. Questions? Councillor Thompson. Jim, you're on mute.
Typical. Sorry about that, Chair. Sarah, could you put up the plan again, if that's possible? I'd like to understand where the boundary is, and of the green belt, if you like.
So the green belt boundary runs here at the back of these houses on Balfour Street.
Right. So I think we discussed that. And what's different from this application from the previous one? I can't pick that up from the report.
I'll just try and make this a bit bigger. So they've removed the detached garage, which was here, shown in this red dotted outline.
Right.
And also this red dotted outline is the outline of the previous house. So they've reduced it in size, and they've reduced the hard standing and removed the garage.
Okay, thank you. That's helpful. Thanks.
Okay, any further questions? Councillor Davis.
Hi, sir. Can you explain to me the LDP rules that govern this application and the site? I'm at a loss to know what the position is on the LDP and as it affects this application. Can you explain that?
So the site's located in the countryside, so it has to comply with policy 2.10, housing in the countryside. It's also in the green belt, which is policy 1.5. There's certain criteria which set out what houses can be allowed in the countryside and in the green belt. And this one fails to comply with those policies. I'll just try and find the
I'm just trying to get a feel for whether the LDP takes precedence over the green belt or vice versa.
Well, the green belt's one of the LDP policies. I'm just trying to find the criteria for housing in the countryside and in the green belt. So for sites that are sites for houses in the countryside and in the green belt can be supported if it's a single dwelling house for a specific locational purpose, a replacement or renovation of a single house, the conversion or redevelopment of a farmsteading, or the beneficial reuse of a brownfield site. And it was concluded that this application fails to meet any of these criteria, so should be refused.
So in that case, just so to be clear on this, so that the LDP considerations do not override the green belt considerations.
No, not in this case. Does Michael might want to pick up on that?
Mike, yeah, you've got your hand up.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Michael Mulgrew, Development Management Team Leader. Councillor Davies, yes, the Greenbelt consideration is a key component of the LDP. So in establishing the acceptability of the development, regard has to be given to both the housing and the countryside policy and the Greenbelt policy. The two have to be read in tandem. And in this situation, there are some instances where we can accept housing within the Greenbelt, but as Sarah set out, between policy 2.10 and 1.5, there just isn't any LDP policy support for a house in this location.
Okay, thanks for that. Councillor Houston.
Thank you, Chair. Could I ask the officer just item 3 on the recommendations? It says that it fails to comply with policy 1.1 of the local development plan as the dwelling house is large and intrusive in relation to the site's context. from the site plan that they showed us, it looks like it's been reduced quite a bit from the original application that was rejected. So it's still been reduced. Can you just say a little bit about why you think it's still large and intrusive in relation to the site's context?
Yes, so it has been reduced in size, and the hard standing has been reduced. However, I think the context of this site with the lane being accessed off the lane, the wooded areas, it being in the green belt, the green space to the kind of north, east and west of the site, and the house will appear quite intrusive in this nature. It is a house in the countryside, due to the site and the scale and design, it will appear quite intrusive in this context, which is maybe better shown from the photographs. Again, I can share these. So I think, it's my opinion, having the large house here will appear quite out of place and intrusive in this context.
Thank you.
Okay, Sarah, I find that quite inconsistent. And I was going to raise the point that Councillor Houston was raising here, because these houses they're adjacent to Balfour Street, but also immediately adjacent to Bryden Road, which are 5-bedroom cala houses. They're huge. So I have a difficulty agreeing with the recommendation 3. I don't think it is large and intrusive. I think the issue here for me, and I do remember this coming to panel previously, I think Councillor Thompson asked the question, what was the change? And I was struggling to get that myself. I know I see it as a scaled down version, but I think the applicant's case here is based on, they think that it's green belt by an anomaly, and that this is a kind of bolt on to the existing housing at Balfour Street, and you've got roads that separate it, you've got landscape that's separating it. So would you not agree that it's in the green belt by an anomaly?
No, I think it's designated greenbelt land, and that's how it is. And I think to note that with the house being accessed via the lane at the rear, it will be read as a house in the countryside. It won't be read as part of the wider settlement group, which is an important distinction. Okay, and I think, again, this was raised at the previous committee. My understanding was historically there was planning permission granted for a house here many years ago, and I know that kind of predates the current LDP. Was there any evidence of that at all, did you find during your assessment of the application? No, I think the history of the site's been quite clear that would be a refusal for a house in this site, and Mike might want to pick up on that.
Mike?
Sorry, I didn't realise I was on mute. Thank you, Chair. Yes, we do recall at the last panel meeting there was that raised, but I believe the application that was being referred to was one that was approved back in the 1980s, which is quite a significant time change from where we are now. We've moved on with multiple local development plans from them. From looking at the site history, we have been quite clear over the last 10 to 15 years that this site is within the greenbelt. The local plan designated it as a greenbelt. The local development plan in 2014 also was greenbelt, and then currently before you the LDP2 in 2018 also continued to mark this site as within the greenbelt. Having looked through the planning history, there has been a variety of pre-applications over the years as well, where our recommendations at that point were also that a house wouldn't be supported in this location.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that, Mike. Councillor Houston, you've got your hand up again. Is it a legacy hand? Okay. Okay, any further questions? Nope. If there's no further questions, the recommendations are contained on page 7, 1 to 3. Does anyone want to move the recommendation, which is to refuse the application? Councillor Houston?
Yes, I'd be happy to move the recommendations as contained in the paper. And I do so, I think, recognising that the local development plan may be drifting away from our current aspirations and the way that people live, and our encouragement of 20-minute communities and the review of housing in the countryside. But I don't think this is the way to approach it on a piecemeal basis. I think we need actually to review the whole, as we will be doing in the forthcoming administration, look at our local development plan overall and what constitutes green belt, etc. And I think that's the appropriate time to look at the whole policy. But the policy exists right now, and I think the points put forward by officers about why this is not appropriate under current policy legislation is correct, and happy to move those recommendations. Thank you.
Okay, anyone want to second that?
I'll be happy to second that, Chair.
Okay, I'm going to suggest that we go against officer recommendation. I've spoken to Mike Mulgrew about this, and I'll give him the reasons for wanting to approve this application. I acknowledge that the site's in the green belt. However, looking at the location of the site and its relationship to the existing housing in Balfour Street and the Briarton Road, it's my opinion, and normally the site sits in the green belt, as stated by the applicant. I do not consider a single house in this location would have a harmful impact on the green belt. The site is bounded by a road and well-established defensible boundaries, so there's no danger to open up the green belt to uncontrolled development should the panel decide to approve the application. My recommendation is to approve. I'm looking for a seconder on that basis for the reasons I've given. Do you want to second that?
Yes, Convener, I'm happy to second it.
Okay, thanks for that, Rob. And anyone otherwise minded? Because if not, I'm just going to hand over the clerk to carry out the vote. Okay, over to you, David.
Thanks, Chair. So just to confirm, we have the motion from Councillor Houston, seconded by Councillor Farmer, which is to move the recommendations, which is to refuse the application. And we have the amendment from Councillor McPherson, seconded by Councillor Davies, to approve the application for the reasons stated by Councillor McPherson. So voting first of all on the amendment from Councillor McPherson, please indicate for, against or not voting. Councillor Davies.
For the amendment.
Councillor Farmer.
Against.
Councillor Houston.
Against.
Councillor McPherson.
For.
Councillor McGill.
Against.
And Councillor Thompson.
Against.
Okay, so the amendment falls by 4 votes to 2 votes. And then voting then on the motion to refuse the application. Councillor Davies.
Against.
Councillor Farmer.
For.
Councillor Houston.
For.
Councillor McPherson.
Against.
Councillor McGill.
For.
And Councillor Thompson.
For.
Okay, and the motion to refuse is carried by 4 votes to 2. Thank you.
Okay, thanks for that. I'm going to adjourn the meeting here, but I'm going to ask Owen to stop the recording, and then I want to speak to panel members before we, obviously, we're going to reconvene at 11:15. So, Owen, could you stop the recording, please?